and Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, President of the Asian Development Bank, our invited speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's my pleasure to be your master of ceremony today. My name is Tiffany Raitama from CNN Indonesia. I would like to thank you for joining us today for the opening ceremony of the 2021 19th World Congress of the International Economic Association. On behalf of the organizer, the International Economic Association and Indonesia Ministry of Finance, we wish to extend our warm welcome and thank you to all participants, distinguished guests, foreign and local participants to this virtual IEA Congress 2021. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for your information today, we have about more than 500 participants from academics, governments, multilateral organizations, and experts joining this opening ceremony. There are more than 40 sessions and more than 8,000 registered participants joining various sessions in the virtual IEA Congress 2021. All participants come together here to discuss on various economic issues. We hope to be able to conclude contributions in these 5 days of the Congress. To begin with, I would like to invite Mr. Kaushik Basu to deliver his welcome speech. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kaushik Basu.
Welcome to the 19th World Congress of the International Economic Association. I'm glad to join Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Minister of Finance of Indonesia, who was also my former colleague at the World Bank, and Masatsugu Asakawa, President of the Asian Development Bank, to inaugurate the 19th World Congress. IEA, International Economic Association, has a global presence. So let me begin by wishing well the paper presenters, discussants, observers, students, and professors from around the world, literally around the world, from America, North and South, Africa, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and specifically from Indonesia, which is hosting the Congress. Unlike other leading associations of economics, IEA takes special pride in global engagement. We have paper presenters from literally every continent, with the exception of Antarctica. The World Congress that we are inaugurating is, strangely, the 2020 World Congress in Bali, Indonesia. But alas, it is happening in 2021, and to be sitting in front of a computer with Zoom connection and to call it the Bali World Congress is, I'm aware, adding insult to injury. But these are very difficult times for everybody all around the world. We inhabit a kind of world that we could not have imagined even a few years ago. I am, of course, referring to the COVID-19 pandemic that began at the end of 2019 and is still raging unabated. When several years ago, I had contacted Sri Mulyani suggesting that we could have the World Congress of IEA, which is once every 3 years, in Indonesia, she readily agreed. And the Ministry of Finance officials were very enthusiastic. I'm really grateful for this, to have a big Congress in Indonesia. We then quickly got together working with my colleagues at the IEA. First of all, there was Danny Roderick, who is the president-elect and will take over from me at the end of the Congress as president. Omar Licandro, Secretary General, Eric Bergloff, Treasurer, Andrea Cavallo, General Manager of IEA, and several others were involved in the organization. and of course, the Ministry of Finance in Indonesia, and also Asian Development Bank a little later came into play, with the president taking a lot of interest in this World Congress in Asia. We held on to the hope for a long time for a regular in-person Congress in Bali, pulling in people from all over the world. But as the first wave of the pandemic cascaded through the world, we gradually realized that a Congress in person in July 2020 would not be feasible. We postponed it. I was particularly keen that it's better to postpone and have it in person. But soon there were second waves of the pandemic and incipient third waves, and we had to reconcile ourselves to the fact that it would be a virtual Congress. So finally, here we are, 2nd of July 2021, inaugurating the 19th World Congress. Friends, these are challenging times for the world. And in many ways, though we have gone through a depressing time worldwide, with a lot of people who have actually taken personal losses, near ones, relatives, and friends, there is also light at the end of the tunnel. We are beginning to look at a new world. The pandemic is hopefully abating here onwards. There are still risks, but that is not what I want to go into. I want to point out that for economists, this is a time of special challenge. Not just the pandemic and what it has done, but the last 60, 70 years, with technology changing, we are going through a period akin to the Industrial Revolution, which was roughly from 1750 to 1850. It was a time of, the Industrial Revolution was a time of great turmoil. And there was actually also dark skies full of pollution, children working, laboring, workers being exploited. But we came out of it. I don't think it is a coincidence that that period of challenge was also a period of some of the finest works and research in economics. Coming to think of it, 1750 to 1850 virtually captures the work of Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Augustine Cournot, John Stuart Mill, Karl Marx. So some of the best ideas of economics were being born during this period. We are at such a period once again. And the pandemic was just a reminder that we have to be sensitive to human needs, larger needs of society. There are people who say that this is the end of globalization, that here onwards we will see deglobalization. I personally don't think that is going to happen, whether one likes it or not, because globalization is almost an automatic process of millions of individuals doing things is leading to globalization. And I believe that there may be some deglobalization initially after the pandemic, but far from seeing deglobalization, we will see re-globalization, a new form of globalization that will take place here onwards. And nations that are able to take advantage of that, and we should help everybody to do so, will be able to come out of this better. And economists have a responsibility to do novel thinking, thinking outside the box, to contribute to this. Indonesia is quite a test case for the world at this point of time. It's a huge country and scattered over many islands, people over large geographies, large numbers of people. Indonesia has gone through a very difficult period, even with the pandemic, which was the wave was peaking. End of January, early February this year, its wave was peaking. It is now going down fairly steadily, slowly. But it gives a little bit of hope. If you look at the economy, I do take a bit of a personal interest in Indonesia. My expectation is that in the year 2021, Indonesia will grow by 5.5%, roughly there. There are a couple of sectors where it's doing very well. Foreign direct investment in Indonesia is flowing in. It is now at a 3-year high. Indonesia's exports have picked up. So in this re-globalization process, it is beginning to hook up with the world quite well. And there are two sectors which I believe will be the growth sectors of the whole world. And in these two sectors, Indonesia is actually doing very well, even during this very difficult period of the pandemic. One of them is the information and communications sector, which is growing through all this difficult time. And the other is health services growing through this difficult time. So it gives us hope that it can be a bit of a test case for the developing world to learn from. And I wish our host country all the best. Let me just very, very briefly mention that despite this relatively dark year and a half behind us, we are working to energize IEA to do a whole lot of new activities here onwards. We have instituted new fellowships. You will hear the announcements. Announcements have already been made, but we will be talking about the award of IEA fellows, the Schumpeter Haberler fellows, the various prizes that we have instituted, two prizes, important prizes for young scholars, the Sen Prize and the Stiglitz Prize. We will make announcements of those. And there are initiatives around the world. We are doing some very prominent work with RIDGE, which is a collaborative research organization that has been very active in Latin America. But now IEA is trying to bring this model to Asia, and we have been talking to China to start up similar activities. In terms of the teaching of economics, revision of economics curricula, new modes of technology being used for teaching with CORE. We have been working, and Wendy Carlin of IEA has taken a lot of personal interest in this to extend this. I should also mention that there are new collaborative efforts with organizations around the world, and I do hope many more countries with their various economic organizations will come on board and use the platform that IEA provides. But we are currently working with Royal Economic Society in Britain to step up our collaboration, research collaboration. We are working with the International Science Council, and I have had meetings with the president of the board of ISC, Daya Reddy, at the University of Cape Town to see and think of ways in which we can collaborate IEA with ISC and take the world of ideas further forward. We are planning many more roundtables, books that will come out, and I hope all of you around the world will come on board with new ideas and work with us to make the IEA a more active platform, playing its very, very important special role, which is bringing a lot of economists around the world in different places on board together. Finally, let me just close by saying that this difficult period that we have just gone through, and we are still going through, is being too optimistic use of language, but a lot of it is not just exogenous shocks on the world. Part of it is our doing as well. We have been thoroughly insensitive to the long-run needs of society. We have paid little attention to environment sustainability. Our politics has become extremely divisive. There are messages of hate, the world being cut up between different groups. We have to realize that we live in a small world, and the principles with which IEA was built up. I should also mention we are having a short history of IEA being written up, so you'll soon get to see what it was attempting. With that history, I hope IEA will play a role in building a more sustainable world, and a world which is less divisive, less hateful, where we all come together. People of different races, different colors, different religions come together on the same platform for a better world and live up for those ideals. With that, welcome once again, everybody, to the 19th World Congress of IEA. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for Mr. Kaushik Basu for the welcome speech. Ladies and gentlemen, moving right along, it is my pleasure to introduce our second distinguished speaker, Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, President of the ADB, to deliver his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa.
Distinguished guests, it is a great pleasure to join you today. For over 70 years, IEA has played a vital role in bringing together experts and researchers from around the world to address important economic challenges. Finding solutions for our developing member countries is also at the core of ADB's mission. We meet together as the International Economic Association World Congress 2021 during a critical moment for the global economy. This year's theme, Equity, Sustainability, and Prosperity in a Fractured World, is especially timely. I would like to express my deep appreciation for my fellow presenters, Minister Sri Mulyani and Professor Kaushik Basu, for enriching this conference with their deep insights and experiences. I will speak to you today about the economic outlook for developing Asia and some of the critical policy areas for securing a strong and lasting recovery in the region. Let me begin with the economic outlook. Recent progress on vaccines have given us hope to turn the tide of the pandemic. But renewed COVID-19 outbreaks and even vaccination rollout across Asia show that the path to recovery will not be easy. After a mild 0.2% contraction last year, growth in developing Asia is forecast to rebound to 7.3% this year and 5.3% next year. The growth trajectory will not be uniform, as global growth will help boost exports in some economies, while continuing containment and travel restrictions will restrain growth in others. Regional GDP will remain below the pre-pandemic trend. The slack in many economies will keep regional inflation muted. The evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic poses the main risk to the economic outlook in the medium term, as well as the possibility of long-term scarring effects that may limit the ability to invest in an inclusive recovery. ADB continues to provide steadfast support to our developing member countries as they confront and recover from the pandemic. Our $20 billion COVID-19 assistance package includes quick disbursing budget support under our COVID-19 pandemic response option, or CIPRO. We are also helping our member countries procure and deliver safe and effective vaccines through our $9 billion Asia-Pacific Vaccine Access Facility, or APVAX. As we will look ahead, I see 5 areas critical to achieving a lasting and equitable recovery for the region. First, we need to place ambitious climate actions at the center of development, committing fully to the goals of the Paris Agreement while increasing our region's focus on adaptation and resilience. Second, we must address inequality, including the gender gap, which has worsened during the pandemic, by investing in health, education, and social protection. Third, we should promote high-quality green and digital infrastructure by rebuilding smartly, closing the digital gap, and attracting private investment. Fourth, we need to deepen regional cooperation and integration so that our developing member countries can seize the opportunities of renewed globalization and strengthen regional health security. And fifth, we should strengthen domestic resource mobilization to ensure that governments have adequate resources to finance sustainable growth and to respond effectively to future crises. Let me end by noting that we value collaboration deeply. In that spirit, I am pleased to announce the launch of a new ADB IEA award aimed at promoting innovative research on key development challenges in Asia. The winner will receive a research grant and an invitation to present at both ADB's annual meeting in 2022 next year and our prestigious Asia Thought Leader series. The winner will also have the opportunity to collaborate with us to strengthen our policy support to ADB's developing member countries. We encourage talented researchers from universities and other institutions to apply, including young scholars, women, and citizens of developing countries. Detail of the award process will be shared soon. Let me stop here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, for the warm remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Her Excellency Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Minister of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver her remarks and as a symbol to open 2021, the 19th World Congress of the International Economic Association. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati.
Very good morning, Indonesia, to all distinguished speakers and guests. And I'm delighted to deliver this welcoming remark on this very prestigious event. The 2021 World Congress of the International Economic Association, which is with the theme of equity, sustainability, and prosperity in fractured world, is very timely. Since its establishment in 1950, IEA has played an important role in promoting mutual understanding among economists across the globe through organization of scientific meeting, research, and publication. This year, Indonesia has the honor of hosting the 19th World Congress of the IEA, bringing together excellent economists to discuss pressing economic issues, especially during this COVID situation. I want to extend my warmest regard as well as appreciation to my fellow Professor Kemenkeu Basu. We both working together at the World Bank. He's the chief economist at the time, and I'm the managing director. He is also president of IEA currently. And also my warmest regard for Professor Danny Rodriguez, the president-elect of IEA, for entrusting Indonesia with this responsibility to host such a reputable event. I would like to also express my gratitude to President Asakawa, President of ADB, for being a strong supporter of the program and a great partner for distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Kemenkeu Basu just mentioned earlier that the 19th World Congress of the IEA was initially expected to be held in Bali. At this very particular time, I was actually hoping to be able to welcome you in person in Bali in such a very wonderful season. Unfortunately, as we all know, due to the recent development of COVID-19 worldwide, especially with the new variant, we have to settle with this video conference congress. But this should not dash our hope that we can and we could still make the most out of this congress to make a mutual understanding of various economic issues and hopefully come up with many new ideas to mend the world. We have seen uneven progress both in the number of cases and vaccination during this COVID-19. The disparity on this COVID-19 progress has led to uneven economic recovery that potentially can hamper both economic growth trajectory and our goals to achieve equality, sustainability, and prosperity within and between countries, which is the theme of this very important event. One of the things that we have learned about COVID-19's pandemic is that it brings us a very high uncertainty. And that's why policy response should be very flexible. Despite the fact that the aggregate case globally is trending down, we must stay vigilant. Many developing countries, most with low vaccination rate, are now experiencing an increase in COVID-19 cases, partly due to the highly transmissible Delta variant of the virus. Due to the recent escalation of COVID-19 cases also in Indonesia, the government have decided to impose emergency public activity restriction, or we call it the PPKM Darurat. This emergency public activity restriction, in fact, will start tomorrow, the 3rd of July, until July 20th. This is just to show how very uncertain and very challenging the environment and the situation that we are all should face and manage. With this measure, Indonesia will enforce the work from home method for all non-essential activity. And activities such as study and praying will be done at home. Restaurants can only serve takeaway orders, while shopping centers and public recreational places will be closed temporarily. Consequently, we are also providing a social safety net or support to the most vulnerable group to help them to get through this very challenging period. This is one thing which actually coming at a very unfortunate timing of the momentum of recovery in Indonesia. And that's why the government of Indonesia really worked very hard to make sure that this situation can be managed through, among other, accelerating our vaccination effort. The target by the president of around 2 million per day is a very, very high target, but it's really needed for Indonesia. That's why Indonesia mobilizing all elements of both government, public institutions, even including military and police, to mobilize and to increase the number of vaccination. As a result, we have inoculated more than 43.8 million people or doses, and our vaccination rate has reached more than 1 million per day as of July 1st, 2021. And we will continue to use every tool to our disposal to maintain an average of more than 1 million or even close to 2 million to complete the vaccination target by the end of the year. We believe through this implementation of both combination restriction movement and acceleration of the vaccination, we will be able to contain the current outbreak or the second wave, and at the same time continue the momentum of recovery that is actually happening very strongly. So on the macroeconomic side, we are actually very optimistic. The PMI, the global manufacturing PMI, hits 11 years record high of 56. And this is also coincide with the Indonesia own PMI, which also hit the 8-month high. Together with the recovering of the global trade, the manufacturing sector has been recovering very well. We also see and witnessing the commodity price, which is also increasing. But we have to be careful with supply disruption issue and the increasing prices in some commodities, which could push inflation higher in some countries. Inflation on one side indicates improving activity, especially on the demand side, which is becoming very weak during this COVID situation. But we also have to be very mindful of its implication in also hampering the recovery and changing policy direction. The policy stance, particularly in the United States, in the monetary side, will impact globally, whether this is in the form of capital flow or even to some fragile countries can also affecting their financial stability. So this is an area that Indonesia also look very carefully in managing and navigating between maintaining and containing COVID-19 and maintaining the economic recovery. With the COVID-19 and uneven global recovery, as well as potential monetary policy normalization, these are all the three risks that we continue to manage and look very closely. And despite continuous improvement in this global economic situation, we still have to be very cautious with other risks such as the growing nationalism or protectionism, changing geopolitical, and also the threat from climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Indonesia is now taking also the role as a co-chair of the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Change. This is the role that I have the privilege and honor to be chairing with my colleague from Finland. This coalition aims to bring together fiscal and economic policymakers to lead the global climate response and secure a just and affordable transition toward low carbon resilient development. We need to take the climate agenda seriously, and we can also learn from the COVID-19 pandemic how very catastrophic a crisis could be if we only continue to do business as usual. Likewise, natural disaster in recent years should be also a wake-up call for what could be worse to come, climate crisis, if we do not respond timely and appropriately. The UN report in October 2020 showed that from 2000 to 2019, there were 7,348 major recorded disaster events, or almost double than the 4,212 events recorded in the period of 1980-1999. These are the facts that we could not ignore anymore. We have to remember that while tackling climate change is like a race with time, not every country has the same starting point. Therefore, one of the agenda that we would like to do in this coalition is to encourage the implementation of developed country support to address the need of developing countries in addressing the climate agenda, including, in this case, is to create and to encourage the countries to deliver the commitment which is essential, that is their nationally determined contribution, and ultimately to meet the goal in the Paris Agreement. Tackling and adapting the climate change is the integral part of Indonesia policy making. As for the climate ambition, Indonesia is currently targeted 29% reduction of emission without international support, and will even further reduction of 41% with international support, compared to the 2030 business as usual baseline. Indonesia also currently in the process of formulating the regulation for the implementation of carbon pricing. We see that the carbon pricing could be a very powerful tool in reducing emission, but we still need to be careful in selecting which sector and actors that involve, and also the pricing as well as the timing and time frame, especially with the current economic situation facing with this challenging COVID situation. Indonesia will learn a lot from other countries and will continue to do so. We are also considering the institutional arrangement of this initiative. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to also inform you that Indonesia is taking part as a troika of the G20 before we are going to assume as G20 presidency in 2020. The G20 is a strategic forum that takes a leading role in many global issues. Therefore, the role of the G20 presidency will provide Indonesia a better opportunity to contribute more and also to take leadership role in global development issues, including facing with this pandemic COVID implication and also climate change. The government of Indonesia also intensifying the works to prepare this G20 presidency in 2020. We will continue the global leadership in this G20, especially rebuilding the world economy in the post-COVID-19 pandemic. Indonesia commit to actively engage in G20 works with relevant international partners to contain the pandemic and accelerated economic recovery. Hopefully, we are going to be able to recover together, stronger and better. We believe that pandemic is a global threat that requires an orchestrated global work to ensure that all economies can recover together, and we will continue to invest for a better future and secure our recovery path. Indonesia G20 presidency, which will start in 2022, is a very critical year for safeguarding the global economic recovery toward a strong, sustainable, balanced, and inclusive growth. These are all the themes which is very relevant with this current Congress of IEA. So we would like to really see a lot of very productive discussion that is going to be also useful to shape our presidency in the G20 next year. As you all know, the setup agenda of the G20 in 2020, including promoting productivity, increasing resiliency and stability, and ensuring stability and inclusive growth. So this is a very timely Congress of the IEA that can hopefully provide a very useful as well as support for our development theme for next year presidency. Distinguished speakers and guests, to conclude my remark, I strongly believe that many great economists who at this very moment gathered in this World Congress will yield a greater understanding of which direction of our world is going to be now and in the future. As Kaushik mentioned earlier, this is a very important question that we are all need to address and face, especially on how to achieve a global economy which is more equitable, sustainable, and prosperous world for all. A future that I believe to be vastly different than what is now. A future that I also certainly hope that we can learn from what is the mistake and what is the inadequacy of the previous system, so that we are all can work together to improve it. I am very honored, and that with this opening speech, I will declare for all of you to open this Congress, IEA IEA Congress, and I do hope that everyone here will have a great and fruitful discussion. I do hope next time we will be able to continue welcome you not only in Bali but also in Indonesia. Thank you so much and have a very fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much, Ibu Sri Mulyani, for the remarks. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the opening ceremony. I am thankful to all guests and participants for your attendance in this opening ceremony. Allow me to remind you that up next is the panel on Asian and global policy issues with Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati, Mr. Kaushik Basu, Mr. Danny Rodrigue, and Ibu Marielka Pangestu. If you have not registered, please do so through the Congress website at www.iewc2021.org. We look forward to welcoming you at every session. This is all the time we have for today. On behalf of the IEA and Indonesia's Ministry of Finance, thank you all for making time in your busy schedules to join us here in this very good morning. It's been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Good morning, and have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.